Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shiur.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Shabbos Daf Peches. Right on top of the Amud says the Gemara, Tashma. We'll move our discussion regarding the machlekes between Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan about the configuration of the calendar during the year of Yetzias Mitzrayim. The Gemara told us that all agree that Klal Yisrael arrived at Har Sinai on Rosh Chodesh Sivan. All agree as well that the Torah was given on Shabbos. The question is merely, what day of the week did Rosh Chodesh Sivan fall out on? According to Rabbi Yossi, Rosh Chodesh Sivan was on Sunday, and according to the Rabbanan, Rosh Chodesh Sivan was on Monday. Says the Gemara, Tashma, let's bring a raya from the following brayse. The Sanya B'Seder Olam. We learned that brayse in Seder Olam, this was a compilation of brayses, which was actually compiled by Rabbi Yossi. So the brayse says as follows: Nisan Sheba Yotzu Yisrael Mitzrayim. So this month of Nisan, when Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim, Ba'arba'asar, on the 14th day of Nisan, Shachtu Pescheim, they shechted the Korban Pesach. B'chamisha Asar, on the 15th day of that Nisan, Yotzu, they left Mitzrayim. V'oisa Hayom, on that day, the 15th day of Nisan, which day of the week was it? V'oisa Hayom, that day, Erev Shabbos Hayom, it was actually Erev Shabbos. So based on this, let's figure out the rest of the month. So if day number 15 falls out on Friday, apparently day number 1 was Friday as well. So Rosh Chodesh Nisan was on a Friday. 15 days later was again Friday. Now, once we know this, says the Gemara, Umidreish Yarcha, the Nisan. Once we know that Rosh Chodesh Nisan fell out on Erev Shabbos, Reish Yarcha De'ir Chad B'Shabbat. So once we know this fact, then we can figure out when Rosh Chodesh Iyar fell out. Once again, Umidreish Yarcha the Nisan Erev Shabbos. Since we know that Rosh Chodesh Nisan was on Erev Shabbos, Rosh Yarcha the Iyar Chad B'Shabbat, we can conclude that Rosh Chodesh Iyar was on Sunday. Why? Because if Rosh Chodesh Nisan falls out on Friday, now how many days is Chodesh Nisan comprised of? So Chodesh Nisan was generally a Chodesh Mala, a full month of 30 days. So if it begins on Friday, when does it conclude? It concludes on Shabbos, 30 days later. Now, if Nisan finishes on Shabbos, so the next day, which was Chodesh Iyar, is on Sunday. Reish Yarcha De'ir Chad B'Shabbat. Now, Iyar generally had 29 days. So if Iyar begins on Sunday, so day number 1 is Sunday, so 29 days later is again a Sunday, right? 4 weeks plus a day. So again, it's the same day. Now, if so, when was Rosh Chodesh Sivan? V'Sivan B'Tzrei B'Shabbat. Apparently, Rosh Chodesh Sivan was on Monday. Kasha Rabbi Yossi. We have a kasha on Rabbi Yossi's opinion. He maintains that Rosh Chodesh Sivan was actually on Sunday. Rabbi Yossi will respond and say, "Hamani Rabbanani." This brayse reflects the opinion of the Rabbanan, who indeed hold that Rosh Chodesh Sivan fell out on a Monday. However, I maintain it was on a Sunday. So it seems that Rabbi Yossi, in his compilation into Seder Olam, actually included opinions which differed with his opinion. So this brayse reflects the shit of the Rabbanan. Continues the Gemara, Tashma, Rabbi Yossi Yomer, B'Sheni Allah, on the second day of their arrival at Har Sinai, Moshe Rabbeinu went up, he ascended up on Har Sinai. So B'Sheni Allah Moshe, on the second day he went up, V'yorad, and he descended, he came down. So he went up and he heard from Hashem, the word that Hashem wanted to convey to Klal Yisrael. I would like you to be for me a mamleches koyahanim v'goy kadosh, a special nation, a kingdom of koyahanim, of priests. And he took those words and relayed them to Klal Yisrael. So he went up and came back down and relayed those words to Klal Yisrael. B'Sheni Allah Moshe v'yorad. B'Shlishi, on the third day of their arrival at Har Sinai, again he went up and came back down. Allah v'yorad. So he went up and he heard from Hashem the tzivoy of Hagbala, that went and instruct Klal Yisrael to create that boundary, to cordon off the Har Sinai. So he heard that, came back down, relayed that to Klal Yisrael. B'Dalet, on the fourth day of their arrival at Har Sinai, Yorad, he came down, v'shuv lo yola, and did not go back up again until the Kabbalah HaTorah, when he went up with the others. Says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me on Wednesday he didn't go up, he merely came down. Meichan Yorad, where did he come down from if he didn't go up? Ella, rather as follows. Revi, on the fourth day, Olav Yorad. So he went up and came back down. B'chamishi, Banam Mizbeach, on the fifth day of their arrival, he built a Mizbeach. V'yikriv alav Karban, he was Markiv on the Mizbeach a Karban. B'shishi, on the sixth day of their arrival, Lo Yahyaloi Pinai, he didn't have time. He didn't have the opportunity to go back up to Har Sinai. Says, well, why not? My love, Mishum Torah, apparently because that day was overtaken by Matan Torah. It was a time for Aseret Adibros, and he couldn't go up himself. That was a time when he went up with the others, Har Sinai, to be Makabel the Torah. So apparently, when was the Torah given to Klal Yisrael? On the sixth day of their arrival. This is a raya to the Shittas Rabbanan, who tell us that Yisrael arrived at Har Sinai on Rosh Chodesh, which was Monday, and the following Shabbos the Torah was given, which is the sixth day of their arrival. However, according to Rabbi Yossi, it was actually the seventh day of their arrival, because he maintains Rosh Chodesh fell out on Sunday, and that was the day of their arrival, and only 7 days later, on Shabbos, was the Torah given. Says Umar, no, that wasn't the reason why he didn't have time to go up to Har Sinai because of the Torah. No, lie. Mishum Torah Shabbos, rather because of a different reason. Because of Torah Shabbos, he was preoccupied with preparations for Shabbos. So apparently even the man required preparation, as the Torah tells us, meant to cook it or break it and prepare it for Shabbos. So that's what he was busy with on the sixth day of their arrival, which was Erev Shabbos. So once again, according to Rabbi Yossi, there's no steer here, because he maintains that the Shabbos the Torah was given on the seventh day of their arrival, and on the sixth day he needed to prepare for Shabbos, and that was the reason why he couldn't go back to Har Sinai. Continues the Gemara, Dorash. Hauglila, this fellow from the Gadol, he was Dorish, he expounded Alei de Rav Chizda, in front of Rav Chizda, as follows. He was extolling the virtues of the Torah that Hashem gave us. He said, Brich Rachmana Baruch Hashem the Yohav Urion. He granted, Urion is the Torah Tlisai, a triple Torah. It's comprised of 3 sections, Torah, Navim, and Ksuvim, a triple Torah. Le'am Tlisai, he granted it to a triple nation, which is composed of Kohanim, Levim, and Yisraelim. How did he give it to us? Al Yidei Tlisai, through Moshe Rabbeinu, who was a third. He was a third born to his mother. So he came after Miriam and Aaron. So he was a third. B'yom Tlisai, it was granted on the third day. Rashi says the third day of Prisha. B'yachat Tlisai, on the third month, Chodesh Sivan. So whose shita does this reflect? Kiman Kirabbanon. Apparently we found the Shittas Rabbanon, who maintain that the Yemei Prisha, the days of separation, began only on Thursday. So there was Thursday and Friday, and then came Shabbos. The third day was the day of the Torah. However, according to Rabbi Yossi, there were 3 days actually prior to Matan Torah of Yemei Prisha. They began on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and only on the 4th day, the day following those 3 Yemei Prisha, was Matan Torah. So this statement apparently reflects Rabbanan Shita. The Torah was given on the 3rd day from the commencement of the Yemei Prisha. Now, the Mepharshim explain what's so unique about 3, triple, and how does it relate specifically to Torah. So they explain as follows, that Torah represents, number 3, this 3rd dimension, because we have Shemayim, heaven, we have Eretz, earth below. They represent 2 diametrically opposed entities. The Shemayim is the heavenly realm, the realm of spirituality. The Eretz, the earth below, is the physical environment. Those 2 things don't really relate to each other. They're the 2 opposites. However, through Torah mitzvahs, a Yid recreates this world. He brings down that Torah, that mitzvahs, and uses his physical abilities within this physical environment. He uses the materials of this world for the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. He makes a mishkan for Hashem, a beis hamikdash, v'shachanti v'seichem. Hashem rests and dwells within us, within our physicality. So, by doing so, he recreates this world. He creates that new dimension. He fuses Shamayim and earth, the spirituality, with the physicality of this world. He creates a new dimension, a 3rd dimension. He elevates and transforms this world into a new creation, new identity, into a new entity. He brings the spirituality, the ruchnis of the Shamayim, embeds it and absorbs it within the earth below. Continues the Gemara. So Klal Yisrael were standing, they stood up underneath the mountain. What do you mean underneath the mountain? Weren't they standing around the mountain? Says the Gemara, Amar Avdimi Bar Chama Bar Chasa. Melamed, this teaches us, Shekaf HaKadosh Baruch Hu Aleim. Hashem overturned the mountain. He had it hover above them. Kaf HaKadosh Baruch Hu Aleim as a har kigig, it's like an overturned vat. So this mountain was positioned above them and around them. They were within this overturned vat, this overturned mountain. V'amar lehem, he told them as follows: Im atem mekablim sa'Torah, if you accept the Torah upon yourself, mutav, then good. V'im lav, but otherwise, sham teik v'raschem, right there will be your place of burial. Now Tosfos asks the kasha, why was this necessary? They've already accepted the Torah upon themselves. They've already said Nasa v'nishma. Says Tosfos, Hashem was concerned that perhaps when they're exposed to the frightful sights of Matan Torah, this Ishak Doila, where their neshama actually left their bodies, it was a very frightful experience. Perhaps they'll change their minds. Therefore, Hashem wanted to ensure that their commitment was etched in stone, was absolute and unwavering. Therefore, He presented them with this ultimatum: be makabel Torah right here now. And this is the pshat in Vayisyasu b'Sachte Sahar, underneath the actual mountain. Omar of Acha Bar Yaakov, Mikan. From here we see Moido Rabba Lo Raisa. This actually generates a very, very strong grounds. A Moido Rabba, very strong grounds of notification, of coercion with regard to the Torah. So a Moido is something which one would generally do before if he's expecting to be coerced into doing something under duress, to execute a transaction under duress, ba'oinus. So he goes and he makes that statement of, "Duh, Rabba, I know that I'm about to do something against my will. It shouldn't have carry any legal weight." So here too, Rav Yaakov says, since the Kabbalah Torah was ba'oinus, was through this form of coercion. So this presents a strong grounds for Moidah, for notification that this was done ba'oinus. And they're not really responsible, as Rashi says, if they're summoned, Klal Yisrael is summoned to a din, why didn't you fulfill your commitment? Why didn't you keep the Torah? Well, they could say it was done ba'oinus, it wasn't done willingly. Continues the Gemara. Nevertheless, Amar Rava, Afal Bikain. Nevertheless, Hadur Kiblua b'mei Achashverosh. They reaccepted it during the days of Achashverosh, when Klal Yisrael experienced that tremendous nace. And that generated a feeling of love and ava to Hashem, and brought them to the point that they were makabel the Torah once again, made ava out of love. The Chsiv, as it says in Megillas Esther, Kimu v'kibul ha'Yehudim. We learn Kimu, they established, they were makayim, ma shekibul kfar, what they've already previously accepted. So this time they accepted it with ava. It was no longer considered to be an acceptance mi'oines, rather mi'ava. I saw this from the Medrash Tanchuma, who gives another reason why the Hashem was needed to be kai for the har kegigis, all that they already said Nasav and Ishma. So the Medrash Tanchuma says that Nasav and Ishma related to merely Torah Shebechsav, which is in a way easier to learn Torah Shal Peh, which requires much more exertion and tircha. And therefore Hashem needed to do this procedure, to have them commit to the difficult learning experience, difficult and rewarding learning experience of Torah Shebal Peh as well. Okay, continues the Gemara. Amar Chizki. What is the meaning of the pasuk? Mishamayim, from heaven, Ishmat din. You've heard forth your din, your Torah. Eretz, the Eretz, Yora, feared, Vishakata, and was calmed. Says the Gemara, what are these two things? Fear and calm, they don't really go hand in hand. Im Yora lo Mishakata. If it feared, why was it calm? If it was calmed, why was it in a state of fear? Ella, rather, betchila yara. So indeed, they didn't both take place at the same time. Initially, the earth experienced fear, but eventually, shakata, it calmed down. Why? V'lama yara, why was it afraid? What is the meaning of the following pasuk? So when it comes to the first day of Bris Olam, it says Vayer Vayveku Yom Echad, then Yom Sheni, then Yom Shlishi. However, when it comes to the sixth day, the Torah uses a unique term, Yom HaShishi. Hey Yisrael Lamali. Why this extra hey? As Rashi points out, whenever we have an hey, it is denoting, it implies something unique, something known, something special. So this Yom HaShishi is referencing some sixth day, which is meant to be known and unique. Says the Gemara, indeed, the Torah here is hinting to a very special day number 6. The day number 6, which was the 6th day of Sivan, when Klal Yisrael were presented with the Torah. This teaches us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Hisna. He set down a condition, he stipulated with the Maaseh Bereishis, with the work of creation. So at the end of the Bria Yisrael on the 6th day, he said as follows, Im Yisrael makabel Torah. If eventually, during that 6th day of Sivan, Klal Yisrael will accept the Torah, which is the true objective and the goal of the entire creation, to bring this whole world, this whole physical world, to its completion, to its shleimus. So that's the purpose of the Bria, Bishvil HaTorah, Bishvil Yisrael. So indeed, if they are makabel the Torah, Ata miskayim, you will have existence. V'im lav, but otherwise, ani machzir eschem l'soy v'vayu, I restore you to absolute nothingness. So that's the pshat that Hashem said, Vayer v'yavek yom hashishi, at the conclusion of the creation of the world. You should know that your whole entire existence is pending on the acceptance of the Torah by Klal Yisrael on that 6th day of Sivan. Let's perhaps take a look at Rashi inside. Let's back up a bit to Rashi, 20 lines from the top of the Amud. Rashi begins with the words Tachti Sahar. So they stood underneath a mountain, Tacha Sahar Mamash, literally under the mountain. Gigis, so the mountain was hovering above them like a gigis, like a vat, Shematil Moshecher, where they process where they place inside, they pour the beer inside. Moidah Rabba, so this was generated grounds for this notification. Shem Yazminim Ladin, Hashem summons them to a din. Why didn't you fill what you've accepted upon yourself? They have a response. That the Kabbalah was be'oinus, was a result of coercion. However, they accepted it me'avas hanes, as a result of the love generated in their hearts, me'avas hanes shenaslam, as a result of the nace that was done for them. So din, Hashem was mashmiya the din, the Torah from Shemayim, and the Gemara tells us the earth, feared and then was calmed. Yara, batchila koydem shomer Yisrael nasam nishma, initially before Nasav Nishma, Yara, the Aretz was feared. Shamalai Kablua, perhaps they won't be Makabel Torah. V'yachzru Olam, the world will be restored, will return to Vayu, to absolute nothingness. And eventually, when they did accept the Torah, then at that point the Aretz calmed down. Yom HaShishi, Maishna Dichsiv Hey. Why does the Torah add the letter Hey? B'yoim Gemar Masberation, on that last day of creation. Melamish Isna teaches Hashem set down a stipulation. HaShishi, with the word HaShishi, Mashma HaShishi HaMiyuchad Makamacher, a special unique day known from elsewhere. Gedamina Ba'alma HaYorach HaMiyumena. So the word Hey denotes something unique and special and known. Afkan here as well. Vayerev Vayivoker Shal Gemar Bereshis. So the last day of Brias Olam, Toloi B'Yom HaShishi, is dependent on the Yom HaShishi, that unique 6th day. V'hu, it's referring to the Shishi B'Nisan, Shenitna by Torah, Miri B'Dehei Dorish B'Namiyah. Continues the Gemara. Dorish Rab Simoy, B'Shah She'Ikdimu Yisrael, when Klal Yisrael preceded, when they uttered a very unique utterance, they committed themselves to Hashem in a very absolute manner. They were magdim, Nasal Nishma, they said, we're going to do, even before we know what it's all about. We're committing ourselves absolutely to Hashem's mitzvahs. So at that point, when they were magdim, they preceded the word Nasa, we're going to do. L'nishma, they did it before. They uttered that before they said Nishma, we're going to hear. This is a very unique commitment. So they were zoichet to something very special. Bo shishim ribui, shamalach asharis. So 60 ribui, which is ribui is 10,000, so 600,000 malachim, which correspond to the number of Klal Yisrael. There's a girsa that says Ula kol echad ve'echad mi Yisrael, and to every one individual of Klal Yisrael, kosher leishnei ksarim, they tied onto him 2 crowns. Echad keneged nasa, one corresponding to the word nasa, Ve'echad keneged nishma, and one keneged nishma. I want to share a beautiful pshat. Why specifically crowns? Because the crown is placed over, on top of the head of a person, above his machshava, his intellectual ability. It represents something which is higher than one's intellectual capacity. Here too, this absolute commitment, this unwavering, so to speak, irrational commitment of Nasa Nishma. It's an absolute commitment beyond intellect. It's something not comprehended or understood. It's an absolute, unwavering commitment. We're going to do whatever you tell us to do. We want to connect to you on the highest form, on the highest level. So we're going to do Nasa. It's absolute, regardless of what it entails. That's something which is beyond human intellect. That's higher than the person's mind. And indeed, there was to these ksarim, these crowns, which were tied to them above their heads. Continues the Gemara. So when Klal Yisrael sinned, they did the Chet HaEgel, Yardu, Me'ah ve'eser riba malachi Chabala. So they lost their ksarim, 120 riba, 120 times 10,000, malachi Chabala, malachim of destruction, came down, descended Upirkum, and they unloaded those ksarim, they removed them from Klal Yisrael. Asked Taisus why was the amount doubled when they came down to remove it. Says Taisus, because of Midah Toiva Meruba. A good thing, it goes easier. It's something which works quicker and easier. So to bring down those ksarim initially only required 600,000 malachim. Each one was able to bring down two ksarim. However, when it came time to remove it, they needed to have one malach per crown. So the malachim removed the crowns. Shanamar, as it says, "Vayisnatzlu beYisrael es edyom." They were stripped of their edyom, of their decoration of these crowns, me'ar chorev, which they received from har chorev. Amar Rab Chamar Chanina. Bechorev tanu, it was actually by chorev Har Sinai that they loaded up. They were loaded up by these crowns. The crowns were placed on them. Bechorev parku. So at Har Sinai, tanu, they put them on, and also at that same location, parku, they unloaded the crowns. Bechorev tanu kadamaram. They had them placed on their heads by Har Sinai, as we just said, that the Vayisyatzu beYisrael es edyom har chorev. It's referring to the crowns which they received by Har chorev. Bechorev parku. How do you know that they were unloaded right there then at that same location? The Chsiv, it says Vayisyatzu beYisrael. Be'Yisrael was stripped of their edyom, of these crowns. Me'ar chorev. From Har chorev and on, they were missing these crowns, meaning that it was removed at Har Sinai, and from there on, from Har chorev and on, they did not have it any longer. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, v'kulan zacha Moshe v'notlan. Moshe ben was zoich, he merited to have these crowns transferred to him. The samachle, because the pasuk immediately following that pasuk, which says Vayisnatzlu, that the crowns were stripped, it says Moshe yikach hasoil. So we dash the Moshe yikach, he took those crowns, and he was zoich to those, all those ksar. Omer shlakish osla kadosh baruch hu lachzir lanu. Hashem in the future will return those crowns to us. Shenamar uvduya Hashem yishuvan, and the redeemed ones from Hashem will return. Uvot and Rina, they will return to Yerushalayim, Berina, with happiness and joy. V'simchas olam al rosham. What does this mean? Simcha shemei olam, this joy that was there from way back, al rosham, the simcha that was on their heads from way back, that also will be restored and returned to Klal Yisrael. It's referring to the crowns that were placed on their heads. Amar B'Elazar, B'shah she'yikdimu Yisrael nasa nishma. At the point in time when Klal Yisrael uttered those words nasa nishma, they preceded nasa to nishma. Yosef Baskel, a heavenly voice, called out and said, V'amar lahen, mi gila lebanai razeh, who revealed to my children this secret? Shemalachi Asheris mishtamshem boy, that the Malachi Asheris they utilize this secret. This is their mode of operation. Nasa, absolute commitment, with no evil inclination whatsoever, without any other will, any other ratzon, nothing competing to ratzon Hashem. We're absolutely committed in any situation to do Hashem's ratzon. Nasa, we're going to do, and then just let us know what we're meant to do. This is something which resembles the operation of the malachim. The Chsiv, as it said regarding the malachim, Baruch Hashem malachav. So the malachim will bench Hashem, Gibayir Koyach, strength of power. So they fulfill the word of Hashem. To hear the words of Hashem. To hear the sound of His words. So the pasuk here first lists doing. Malachim first fulfill, and then they hear. So Bereisha, first they're committed to doing. It's a her, it doesn't exist in a malach. So he's absolutely committed to doing what's in Hashem. He has no other will. And then they hear, they get their instructions. So here as well, Nasav Nishma, that was expressed by Klal Yisrael, expresses this utmost commitment to Hashem on the highest level. We're willing to do anything, anywhere, anytime. Just let us know what we're meant to do. So the pasuk equates Klal Yisrael is analogous to a apple tree which grows b'atzei hayar. Lama nimshul Yisrael tapuach. What is the connection? Lo yimlecha to tell you. Ma tapuach zeh. Just as this apple, period kadem lolav, its fruit begins budding prior to its leaves. Af Yisrael higdu nasa nishma. Likewise, Klal Yisrael preceded nasa, doing, which is resembled with the fruit. So that came before nishma, which is resembled by the leaves. And Tosfos asks that we don't find that the apple tree behaved any differently than other trees. Tosfos says this tapuach is referring to the esrog tree. So the esrog actually comes before its leaves because we know that the esrog lasts on the tree for a while, for a number of years. So although the first year the leaves come first, but then when the leaves fall off, at the end of the year the fruit is still there and it precedes the leaves which come during the following year. Okay, so this was representative of it's indicative of the Nasav Nishma, which was a schus that Klal Yisrael expressed their commitment to Hashem in this manner. Says the Gemara, who stuki? There was this stuki, the Chazi l'Rava. He noticed Rava the Kama'ayim b'Shmaita. He was deeply immersed in his learning. V'yasva etzba'asa yadei, and the hands of the fingers of his hands were etzba'asa yadei. The fingers of his hand were sitting tusei kara underneath his foot. V'kamayetbu, and his foot was crushing them. V'kamaban etzba'asa dama, and his fingers were gushing blood. Amarle, so he wasn't impressed. He said, Ama Peziza, you hasty nation. The kadmisu pumaichu, ludnaichu, you've preceded your mouth to your ears. You first said nas, and then you said, okay, we're going to hear. This is an act of hastiness. Akati, you're still in that mode. Bipachzusaichu kamisu, you're still in that hasty mode. Look what's going on. You're not paying attention to what you're doing. You're so engrossed in your learning. Bereisha, so you weren't meant to say Nasav Nishma. First you were meant to examine exactly what it entails. Bereisha, Mishma, you should have listened and heard from Hashem. Imatzisu, Kablisu. If you're able to fulfill, to be makabel, to accept the Torah, you're meant to see what's involved before committing yourself unconditionally. V'loi, and if you can't be makabel, it's too difficult for you, you should not accept it. So you meant to examine the content of the Torah before you were makabel the Torah. First you should hear imatzisu kablisu, v'loi lo kablisu. Amalei, so Rava wasn't impressed. He responded very sternly. He said, Anan l'sagina b'shleimusa. We, Klal Yisrael, who proceed with shleimusa, absolute faith in Hashem, out of love, we trust Hashem. We know He won't overburden us with something which we can't fulfill, that we can't live by. We were confident that Hashem will give us something which is perfectly suitable and appropriate for us. Therefore, we can afford to say Nasa before we even know what's entailed in the Torah. So us, that we proceed b'shleimusa, ksivan, regarding us, it says Tumas Yisharim Tanachem, the absolute faith of Yisharim, or straight ones, Tanachem, leads them. Hanachinshi, but these fellows, the Sagim Balusa, that they proceed with perverseness. Ksivu, it says, Ve'selef, Boigdim, the perverseness of these rebellers, Yishadim, it robs them and destroys them. So Rava responded very strongly. He said, yes, we are proud of what we did. We are absolutely connected to Hashem. We love Hashem. We trust in Him, and we believe that if Hashem gives us something, we have the ability to fulfill it, to be Mekayim the Torah. So in summary, we discussed that the Torah is a triple entity. We discussed the fact that Hashem, He had the mountain hover above Klal Yisrael, and they were indeed the mekabelet be'ava in the days of Achashverosh. Hashem set forth a stipulation with the entire Bria, which was pending on the Kabbalah HaTorah. We learned about Nasa v'Nishma, about the Ksarim, and the story with the Tztuki. Continues the Gemara. Omar Shmuel ben Achmeni Amar V'Yonasan. What is the meaning of the following pasuk in Shiur Shirim? Hashem tells Klal Yisrael, who is described as a kala here, Libavtini achoisi kala, you brought me close to you. Libavtini ba'achas me'inayich, you brought me close to you through one of your eyes. What do you mean one of your eyes? Betchila, initially, ba'achas me'inayich, it was only through one of your eyes. Lekeshetasi, however, when you actually fulfill the mitzvahs, you keep the Torah, b'ishteinayich, that is regarded as though you brought me close to you with both your eyes. Explains the Maharsha. Seeing, the eye represents two realms. There's the eye and the mind, seeing through the mind, intellectual vision, and then there's the actual physical eye which sees. So initially, Batchila, when Klal Yisrael accepted the Torah, Nasa v'Nishma, that was on an intellectual level. So that's represented with Be'achas me'inayich. That's symbolized with the concept of one eye, merely the intellectual eye, the mind's eye. But then, says the Gemara, when you actually fulfill, you actualize that commitment, you do the mitzvahs, you do the Torah, that is bringing it down to realization, actuality. That is resembled in the concept of shteinayich, both eyes, the eye of the real eye, the physical eye as well. So you brought me close to you. B'shteinayich. Amar Ula, aluva kala, a kala who's shameless, mezana b'seich chuppah, so did znus within the chuppah. This is regarding Klal Yisrael, who is regarded as a kala, and they strayed, they turned to the egel at Har Sinai, which is considered to be the makam, the chuppah. Omar Rav Mari, brother of Shmuel. So Rav Mari, the son of the daughter of Shmuel, said as follows: Mikra. Where do we find this concept in the pasuk? That Klal Yisrael strayed right there at the chuppah, at Shamelch b'msiboy. The king was still at his banquet near the Nosan Reichai. So the near is the fragrance. Nosan Reichai has given away its reach, has given it away to others. This is when Klal Yisrael strayed to the egel. Omar Rav. However, v'adayin chavivus higabon. Even in this pasuk which describes Klal Yisrael straying and following the Avodah Zarah, the pasuk doesn't speak in derogatory terms. It still presents it in an endearing fashion. Tichsiv, because it says Nosan v'lo kasav esriach. The pasuk says that Klal Yisrael gave away its fragrance. It gave away to others. It committed itself, so to speak, to others, to the egel. It turned away from Hashem. But it doesn't use a derogatory term. His sriach became putrid. The smell turned into something foul-smelling. So this is an expression of endearment from Hashem to Klal Yisrael, even when they did this aver. Taner Rabbanan, we learned in the Bryce. Aluvim ben and Oluvim, those who allow themselves to get insulted and don't respond in kind. Shoymin cherpasam, they hear their disgrace being expressed. Ve'erim yeshivan, and don't respond. Oisei me'av, they do out of love of Hashem. Usmeichem yisur, and they're joyous, they're happy when Yisurim come. They know Hashem knows best. Aleim hakasav oimer, on them the pasuk says, v'oyav of those who love Hashem, and they know everything is from Hashem. Even when a human being curses him, insults him, that is also coming from Hashem. Hashem is sending him. He's a shliach. He's not doing anything on his own. So these people, v'oyav of those people love Hashem, kitzeis Hashem shegorasai, are described as the sun coming out in its full glory, its full strength. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. My dechsiv. What is the meaning of the following pasuk? Hashem yitin oimer hamevasrois tzavarov. Says the Gemara called dibur v'dibur. Every word sheyasim hakbura that Hashem spoke, nechlak l'shivim l'shenis, split up to 70 languages, and related to all the 70 nations, 70 cultures of the world. So that's the pshat. Hashem yitin oimer. So his words were directed hamevasrois tzavarov, which called out Tzavarav, this a very large Tzava is a group. So to many groupings, many Many nations were able to hear and understand the Torah. The Torah was expressed in all languages. Tzavarav, all the multitudes. Continues the Gemara. Tani Verishmo. The pasuk says, and this is a pasuk which relates to the Torah. Ukefatish efoitzeit sala. Just like a hammer, he smashes the rock. So how is this equated to Torah? Ma patish zeh nechlak l'kaman tzotzitz. Just as this hammer, when it smashes the rock, it causes the rock to smash into slivers. Av kol diva v'diva shiyotzim hakadosh baruch hu. Likewise, every word that came out of Hashem, nechak l'shivin l'shenis, was split into 70 languages. As Hasemas points out, all languages are really rooted in Lashon HaKodesh. And during Matan Torah, the spiritual source and root of all the languages and all the cultures of the world was revealed to be Megala, to highlight the fact that in its root, everything really is rooted in Kedusha and Torah, and spirituality and Ruchnis is the true essence, the core essence of everything, of all existence. Everything is really leading in the same direction to bring the world to its completion. Omar of Chananu bar Papa, my dichsiv, what is the meaning of the following pasuk? Shimu k'negidim adaber. So this is referring to the Torah again. Lama nimshalu the Torah k'nugget. Why was the Torah here equated to a nugget, a prince? Loimar lach to tell you as follows. Ma nugget zeh, this prince, this person of high authority. Yesh ber lahamis lachis. He has the ability to kill. Av the Torah yesh ber lahamis lachis. The Torah have the ability to be mamus and to be mechaya. Hainu damarav. This is what Rav meant to say. Ones who grasp the Torah with their right hand, Rashi says, means they're fully immersed in Torah. They're learning Torah to pursue spirituality for the sake of connecting to Hashem. That is my meaning, but they're fully immersed in Torah. Sama de chaye. The Torah for them is a sam, a medicine, a drug, which increases life. However, those who engage in Torah, grasping it with merely their left hand, they use it for ulterior purposes. They're learning the Torah to further their own agenda. It's not real, it's not genuine. The Torah is a samamaves. It brings them to spiritual death. Torah is like a medicine. A medicine can enhance a person's health if taken properly, but it could also ruin a person's health if he abuses the drug. Torah is that energy, that power. If one utilizes it properly, l'shem shamayim, to do the mitzvah, to learn for the sake of learning, that is a samad achai, that increases his life. If one uses it as a means to further his agenda, to disprove his friend, that's masmi ilamba, that's samad d'moisa. Davar ach, another pshat, Torah is equated to negidim kol dibur v'dibur. Every word sheyotzim hakadosh baruch hu that Hashem spoke, koshim loy, they tied to it shnei ksarim, 2 crowns. As Rashi points out, the words during Matan Torah here, we're speaking about during Matan Torah, was visible, it was tangible. So they tied 2 ksarim on each word. Mashal explains. So they both represent the different realms of Torah. One crown represents the more revealed meaning of Torah, and the second crown represents the deeper level, the deeper meaning of Torah. Omer Shimon Levi. My dechsiv tzroir hamar doidi li. Tzroir hamar is a bundle of fragrance. Doidi li is referring to Hashem ben shadai yolen. He will rest ben shadai between my breasts. Omer K'nei Yisrael v'nei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rebbeinu Shalem afal pi. Although, as a result of the cheta egel shem meitzer umeimerli, he brings me tzai, he brings me tzara umeimerli, and he embitters me. He brings me bitterness. So this was on account of the fact that they lost their ksarim as a result of the egel. So although that's taking place, he's punishing me. So afal pi shemeitzar, even though he is bringing me misfortune of memory and bitterness to me. Doidi ben shadai yolim. My doidi is referring to Hashem. Is ben shadai yolim. He rests between my breasts. Rashi explains that right after the egel, Hashem didn't leave Klal Yisrael, so to speak. He right away instructed them to build the Mishkan, which was this grand opportunity to have the Shekhinah rest amongst Klal Yisrael, and the Shekhinah rested by the Aron, between both poles of the Aron, which were configured in a way that they would actually protrude through the. They would push a bit through the paroiches. They wouldn't stick all the way through, but they would push a bit through, and on the other side it would appear like two Shadai Ish, like the two Shadai and two breasts of a woman. So the Shechina was bein Shadai Yolin. So although Hashem is punishing me as a consequence of the Chet Egel, nevertheless, He rests on Klal Yisrael in the Mishkan. The pasuk says, "Eshkol ha'kofer doidili becharmein gedi." Says, what does this mean? Mi sha'akol shaloi. Eshkol is me, the one sha'akol shaloi. Everything belongs to Hashem. Mechaperli, He tones for me. Al avoin gedi, on the chet of the egel. So gedi is actually a goat, but it's referring to a domestic animal. So it's representing the chet egel. Shekaramtili, that I've heaped for myself. As Rashi brings, they desired many gods. So this is an atonement for the Chet Egel. My mashma. Where do we find the Hay Karmi Lishna the Machnashu? That this word Charme is a lashon of heaping, of gathering. Omar Zutu b'Rav Nachman. The Snag is learned in the Mishnah. Kisei shel koiv is this launderer's chair. Shekurmim olav, that they would heap on it, they would gather on it. Es hakelim, the garments. Rashi says they had the fragrance burning underneath it, so the garments would absorb the smell. So charmi means to heap, to gather together, to pile up. So the pasuk here is referring to the Chet Egel, which Hashem provides a kapara to Klal Yisrael. V'amar Shimon Levi, Mai dichsiv l'choyav ka'arugas haboisem. So Hashem's cheek was like this row of besamim, called dibur v'dibur, every word. She'yotzev Kadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem spoke by Har Sinai, nismalik kol olam kuli besamim. The whole world filled up with psalmim. Says the Gemara, how could you say that it happened successively? The Kiva, the Shemediba Rishon, Ismali, once the world entirely filled up as a result of the first Dibur, Dibur Sheni Leichan Halach. Where did the second Dibur go to? There was no room anymore. Says the Gemara, Hoysakadosh Baruch Hu Haruach Meitzreisav. Hashem took out a ruach from his treasure via Mave Rishon, and he would remove the first installment of psalmim, and he would remove it, take it away, and substitute it with the second installment. Shenemar sif soisav shishanim noitfeis more over. Hashem's lips are shishanim, like roses, noitfeis drip more over. This fragrance over, meaning removal. So removed. Hashem arranged that it should be removed to allow for the second installment of psalmim. Altuki shishanim el shishanim. So they would repeat themselves. It would be an ongoing procedure. Called Dibur v'Dibur, Sheyosef Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So by Har Sinai, every word that Hashem uttered, Yosef son Shmasan Shal Yisrael. As a result of that, Klal Yisrael was so frightened, and the Neshama left their body. Shenemar Nafshi, my nefesh Yotza left, but Daber when Hashem spoke. Says the same question. Achar Shema Dibur Rishon Yotza. Once the Neshama left on account of the first Dibur. Achar Shema Dibur Rishon Yotza Nishmasan Dibur Sheni Heich Kiblu. How did they hear? How did they receive the second Dibur? They're already gone. Says the Gemara, Hirid Tal. Hashem brought down Tal Du She'asad Lachis. We made some special dal, this tal, this du, which Hashem is going to use to be Machai Mason to resurrect the dead. She'asad Lachis we made some Vehech Yoisam, and He revived them, and therefore they were there and available for the second Dibur as well. Shenemar, as it says, Geshem Nadav, the rain of graciousness, of generosity. Tanef Elikim, you spread above them. Tanef Elikim Hashem, you spread Nachalascha above your inheritance. Klal Yisrael vanilla. So for those who are weakened, Atoch and Anta, you've established and set up. So you revive them and enable them to continue experiencing Matan Torah. So the Mepharshim point out that the first version of Shimon Levi is referring to those people who needed to get strength. They became weakened due to the overwhelming experience, this fright, this fear of Matan Torah, and that's why Kadosh Baruch Hu was mighty that fragrance to strengthen them, to give them chizuk. The second version here, that the Klal Yisrael, they lost their nefesh. That is another version of events. Some in Klal Yisrael had that experience. And for that, Hashem needed to use the tal to revive them. And finally, another version of Shimon Levi, called Dibur v'Dibur. Sheyotzev Hakadosh Baruch Hu. When every single word that came out from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mouth during Matan Torah. You know what happened? Chazru Yisrael Achareim, Yud Beis Mil. Klal Yisrael was sent back, retracted 12 mil. So Rashi explains the Machne Yisrael, the encampment was this size. It was 12 mil by 12 mil, and the ones who were right in front of the camp, right by Har Sinai, they jumped back all the way to the back of the Machne, the entire distance of Yud Beis Mil. So apparently it happened to others as well, but the Gemara is referring to those in the front, that the most one would jump back is 12 mil all the way to the back. So what happened as a result? They would take them and encourage them, slowly walk them. They would tar them to the front, like one does to a child. Instead of reading Yidoidin, El Yidadon, they would tar them, they would walk them slowly back to their position. So once again, we have three versions of Shimon Levi, what took place, and the Farshim speak out. He's referring to different types of classes of Yidden, different madregas, different spiritual levels. There were those who really needed a little extra encouragement, chiziks with the psamim. The ones that actually passed out and needed to be revived. There were ones on a level which required them to jump back. So depending on their situation, they responded in kind, and Hashem revived them by either bringing out the psamim or the tal to revive them, or the malachim to bring them back into position. When Moshe went up to Shamayim, so Malach HaSharis asked Hashem, what is this human being, a Yulud Isha, born by a woman? What's he doing between us? We're spiritual entities here. Amr Lahem Lekabel Torah, but he came to accept the Torah. Amr Lefanav, how could that be? Chamuda Gnuza, this dear Gnuza, this hidden thing, this dear treasure, that was hidden by you, for 974 generations. It's been around so long, hidden as a treasure. Now you're going to give it to a human being, a mere flesh and blood. What is a person worth that you should remember him, a ben adam and a ben adam that you should recall him? Hashem Adonai, Hashem our master. Your name is so great. Rather, place your glory up in heaven. That's where it belongs, not down on the earth. HaKadosh Baruch Hu returns to Moshe and he says, respond to them. So Moshe says, I can't. I'm fearful. Shema Yisrafuni, perhaps they'll burn me up, behevel shavapiam, with the breath of their mouths. Hashem told them, don't worry, hold on to my throne, and respond to them. Shenemar, as it says, Machaz pnei chisei parshes olav anone. So you meant to hold on, Machaz pnei chisei, you meant to hold on to my chair of glory, and this will enable you to respond. Va'amar Nachum Malamed, this teaches us, Shepires Shakai Miziv Shchinasei, Hashem spread from his Ziv HaShchina, Va'anonei Olav, and he made this Anan, he made it like a cloud above him, and this protected him from the Malachim. Okay, so Moshe Rabbeinu was prepared to respond now, but you need to know what the Torah was all about. Amalafan of Ribbon Shalom. Torah Shata Noisonly, this Torah that you're going to give me, Maksiva, what's enclosed therein? Well, what does it involve? So he said, so Hashem responded with the first one of the Seres HaDibros. Amalem, so using this ammunition, now that he knew what was involved in the Torah, what the Torah contained, Amalem, so he turned to the Malachim, he says, this is not suitable for you. L'Mitzrayim Yiradtem, have you gone down to Mitzrayim? L'Farish Tabatem, have you been enslaved to Paro? Torah Lamatei Lachem. Why should the Torah be given to you? This is something which human beings experienced. This is something appropriate for us. Shuv Maksiva. Again, he asked Hashem, what else does it say in the Torah? Lo yelecha lehim acherim. You shouldn't worship idols. Bein amim atem shruim. So he turned to them and he said, okay, if this is what's in the Torah, this doesn't pertain to you. Do you live amongst the Gentiles? Shoyid mami dezara, that you have this inclination. Shuv Maksiva. Again, what does it say in there? So Hashem says, Zoch Hashem Shabbos lekatche. So using that, he turns to the Malachim again. He says, Klum atam oisem malacha? Are you ones that are engaged in labor, that you need shvus, that you need rest on Shabbos? That's not something for you. Again, he asks Hashem, Shuv maksiva. What else does it say? Lo sisa, don't swear falsely. So he turns to the Malachim, Masum matam benechem. Do you have a business transaction which can bring you to swear falsely? Shuv maksiva. What else does it say? Kabe zavich v'semecha. Klum of aim yesh lachem. Do you have a father and mother to respect? Shuv maksiva. What else does it say? Lo sirtzach. Don't kill. Lo sinaf. Don't have znus. Lo signav. Don't steal. Kinesh benechem. Do you have jealousy amongst you? Yetzer har yesh benechem. This evil inclination. Do you have that? So once they heard that, they were stumped. They realized that the Torah indeed is a human experience. Is meant for human experience. It's meant to be applied down here in the Olam Hazeh Gashmi. It doesn't pertain to Malach. Miyad immediately hoidul HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They agreed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They acquiesced. Shenamar, as it says, Hashem Adonenu, Mo'ad Shimcha, how great your name, B'chal Haaretz. And they didn't say T'nohid Chal HaShamayim V'ilu T'nohid Chal HaShamayim, place your glory up in heaven. Like Siv doesn't say. So they agreed that this Torah is meant for Klal Yisrael down there below. As we mentioned earlier, Torah is meant to recreate that word below, to use those physical tools to be Kaddish them, to elevate them, to transform them to an entity of Ruchnis. Okay, so in summary, we learned that Kol Dibur V'Dibur Sheyotze V'Kadosh Baruch Hu was split into 70 languages, so all the nations can hear the Torah, the Seres HaDibros. We learned that 2 Ksarim were tied to every Dibur. We learned that the whole world filled up with Psamim. On account of each Dibur, the Neshamas of Yisrael left. The Yisrael reverted backwards to the back of the Machne as a result of this overwhelming experience of Matan Torah. And we concluded with this story that Moshe Rabbeinu debated with the Malachim, and in conclusion, they agreed to his approach that Torah indeed is suitable specifically for mortal beings, for people of Basar V'Dam. Okay, a brief chazara of today's daf. We began with the discussion of Reisin Rabbanon, and we proceeded with the Torah, which is a triple Torah. And then we had the description of the Kaf Aleim, Hakegigis Hashem. He took the mountain and hovered it above Klal Yisrael. The Gemara told us that eventually, during the time of Achashverosh, they were Mekabel Torah Mi'ava Sanes. Hashem stipulated a condition with the Maaseh Bereshis. You must wait. Your existence depends on the Kabbalas HaTorah, which is the true goal and purpose of the world. We learned that Klal Yisrael expressed a very lofty expression of Nasef and Ishma, which is akin to Malachim, who absolutely are committed to Ratzon Hashem. We learned that due to that, they received the Shnei Ksarim. We had the story with the Tzduki, where Rabbi told him that out of love to Hashem, we're totally dependent on Him. We follow Him blindly. We know that whatever He gives us, whatever instructions He instructs us, are suitable and perfect based on our ability and our capacity. We learned about the chavivas that Hashem had even after Klal Yisrael did the Egel. And in fact, the Gemara tells us that immediately following the Egel, Hashem instructed them to build a shechina so they can rest amongst them. We learned about the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the power that they had, and we concluded with the story of Moshe Rabbeinu with the Malachim.